All right, welcome back to Building Dad Bod 2.0. I've been cutting weight for the last 5 weeks. I'm down 11 pounds. I was asked by John Imperial to do a video on what I eat in a day. So I'll show you some of what I eat and talk about how I cut. So starting off with, my maintenance calories are 3,085 per day. I use an app called Lose It to calculate my maintenance calories and to input all my food. So I've been eating 2,300 to 2,500 calories per day. So that puts me in roughly a 500 to 700 calorie deficit daily. So I shoot for 1,000 calorie deficit, which means I have to make up the rest of that through exercise, whether that be lifting weights or some form of cardio. We'll talk about that more in a minute though. First off, let's get to what I generally eat while I'm in the cut. I like to keep it pretty simple. I eat the same thing every day for breakfast. I like to start off my day with a good helping of protein and carbs. My philosophy on breakfast is that my body's been repairing itself all night, so I hammer the protein and then I need carbs for energy to get my day going. So for breakfast, whether I'm bulking or cutting, I start my day with Greek yogurt, half a scoop of whey protein, granola, raisins, and frozen fruit. So you can see the portions there. I just eat more of the same thing when I'm bulking, but you can see there my breakfast, 572 calories to start the day. And I always have a couple cups of coffee with breakfast. I weigh each component of every meal as I assemble it. So here for lunch we had sweet potatoes, mixed vegetables, chicken, shrimp, and salsa. So you can see there for lunch 471 calories. As soon as I get home from work I eat more yogurt, this time just with fruit and raisins. So the after work snack is 378 calories. For dinner I had sweet potatoes, chicken, tomatoes, bell peppers, and shrimp doused in a bunch of sriracha. So this day, from the time I got home from work to the time I started my workout, I got about 800 calories in me. And then I finished off the day after my workout with more Greek yogurt, raisins, fruit, and a banana. So if you look at the top of the screen there, you can see the breakdown of macros for the day. 6% fats, 52% carbs, and 42% protein. That's a bit low on fats even for me. Usually I try to keep it at 10%. I don't often eat chicken breast because it's so expensive, but this week I did all week. Usually if I have chicken, it's chicken thighs, but more often than not, I'm eating pork loin or I'm eating lean ground beef, which both have more fat in them than chicken breast. But mostly I rely on meat and granola for the fats in my diet in the cut. So you'll see here I got 256 grams of protein, 315 grams of carbs, and 16.8 grams of fat. Usually I try to keep it over 20 grams of fat. And I just take a screenshot of my steps. So I got 14,452 steps, which is actually low for me in the cut, but we'll talk more about walking in a bit here. So now how I cut. When I first started cutting a couple years ago here, first thing I did was figured out my basal metabolic rate. So we'll go with mine right now at 185 pounds. My body burns roughly 1,700 calories a day just existing. So that tells me I definitely have to be intaking more than 1,700 calories per day. The next thing I do is find my maintenance calories. So I use the app that I input my food into, the Lose It app. It has me at 3,085 calories per day maintenance. Other online calculators have me around 3,200. So if I burn just up to my maintenance calories every single day, I would need 2,085 calories per day to be in a 1,000 calorie deficit. You need a 7,000 calorie deficit in a week to burn 2 pounds of fat. 3,500 calorie deficit in a week to burn 1 pound of fat. I like to be aggressive in the cut and shoot for 2 pounds a week, but I also don't like to eat below 2,300 calories per day if I can help it. So that means I have to burn at least 3,300 calories in a day if I want to consume 2,300 calories. And if I have an even more active day than usual, I'll up the calories a little bit. So that's where right now I got the 2,300 to 2,500 calories. So as I said, I track all my food intake every single day. I track all my steps, and I roughly track as accurately as I can my energy expenditure with my Fitbit. It's far from perfect, but I've been doing it for 3 years now, and I know pretty well how the numbers play out compared to what I've actually burnt in a day. My goal in the cut is always to maintain all my strength and all my muscle mass, or as close to that as possible. So for me, I prioritize protein. I go overdo it on the protein for sure, I know that, but I eat a minimum of 200 grams of protein every day when I'm cutting. As far as carbs go, I rely on carbs for energy to fuel my workouts. So I try to get at least 300 grams of carbs in a day, if not more. Fats are definitely essential, but I try to keep them at a minimum when I'm in the cut. So I keep them at about roughly 10% of my macros when I'm in the cut. Right now, as far as meal timing and macro timing go, this is what I like to do. So this is all relative to the amount of calories we're taking in. So a big breakfast, so 550 to 600 calories for breakfast. I prioritize protein and carbs. I try to get a good balance here, but I do recommend a good amount of protein. Your body's been repairing itself all night. Protein is the building blocks for muscles. So I got a big hit of protein at breakfast, good amount of carbs to fuel me for the day. Lunch, I eat a fairly, like a smaller lunch, so 400 to 450 calories. Try to balance it as much as possible between protein and carbs. I'm always hungry when I get home from work, so I have a small snack. It's usually like about 375 calories, but so we'll say 350 to 400 calories. And again, we try to balance that between protein and carbs. Dinner, again, relative to the amount of calories we're taking in, is bigger, and same as breakfast, 550 to 600 calories. This meal, I do get some protein for sure, but I try to prioritize carbs because this is the last meal I eat before I work out. So I want lots of carbs to fuel me through my workout. Post-workout, a bit smaller. I work out, generally I get out of the gym at about 11:30 at night. Between 11 and 11:30, so it is late. I have zero problem whether I'm bulking or cutting, eating right before I go to bed. I think it's actually smart to eat right before you go to bed. Again, protein is the building blocks for muscle. So I like to hammer the protein right before I go to bed, give my body lots of building blocks to work with while it's repairing me through the night. So I prioritize protein, but I do get some carbs in there as well. I don't skimp on carbs, but protein is the priority. All right, exercise in the cut. Muscle is precious. You do not want to lose any more muscle than you need to in the cut. My goal is always to maintain 100% of my muscle mass. Whether I do it or not, it's hard to fully quantify, but I've always managed to maintain a good amount of muscle mass in the cut. Strength, my philosophy's changed a little bit. Last year, I just went on a higher rep cycle while I cut. This year, I'm doing my best to maintain as much strength as possible. So that gets us into lifting weights. Lift weights 6 days per week, 6 2-hour sessions. I do film YouTube, so sometimes they're 3-hour sessions, but not all of it's working out. Some of it's setting up cameras and all that. But generally, probably 90 minutes of it solid is working out, lifting weights. Sometimes more. Intensity, this year there is zero change in intensity. I'm going as hard as I can all the time. I follow a power building model, so even in the cut, I'm hitting heavy singles, doubles, and triples. Every workout, generally, I hit 2 heavy compound movements as my first 2 exercises. And then the rest of the workout is more hypertrophy focused or working on weaknesses, areas I want to strengthen. But those are all above 5 reps generally. I still do a ton of volume in the cut, but I've modified a little bit in the sense that, say on my squats, normally I would do a lot of warm-ups, high volume warm-ups, some working sets leading up to my singles. In the cut, I wear out a little bit faster, so what I do is I do less volume leading up to my max singles, and then I put in more, say, squat volume after my singles are done so that I'm not affecting the top end strength. I want to keep as much top end strength as possible, and then I hit a ton of volume to build work capacity, build weaknesses. As far as cardio goes, I have a walking goal, 15 to 20,000 steps per day. You can see earlier in the video, I was like 14,500. So I was a little bit under that day, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have an active day. With my job, I can be up and down telephone poles, up and down my 32-foot ladder, in and out of crawl spaces, crawling on my stomach. There's a lot of stuff that goes into being active more so than just steps, but I find in the cut, 15 to 20,000 steps burns a good amount of calories for me, puts me in a good place. Weighted vest walking, that's one of my favorite things to do in the cut. Throw on my 55-pound weighted vest, and just by default, you burn more calories walking than you do without it. If you got a treadmill, which I do not have, incline walking is awesome. Or you combine incline walking with a weighted vest is absolutely amazing way to burn calories. Low intensity, easy on the body, but you burn a lot of calories. On top of that, I try to throw in multiple high intensity strongman sessions per week. These are basically based around carries. So like Zercher carries with the yoke carries, farmer carries, sandbag carries, sled pushes and drags. I do a little bit of sprinting. In the past, I've done some jogging. This year, I haven't been doing much in the way of running long distances. But that's something that you can throw in there. I just find it beats up my joints too much. And then lots of jump training. My last leg day, I did 15 minutes straight of jump training before I started my squat session. In my opinion, it doesn't matter if you're in a bulk or a cut. Everyone should be resistance training. Like I said, you want to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. You don't want to sacrifice muscle just to lose weight. That's absolutely silly. It's easier to maintain muscle than it is to lose a bunch of muscle and try to put it back on. All right, I just watched a video by someone else on cutting, and the question was, can you build strength in the cut? His response was yes, everyone should always be able to build strength while cutting. I think that's a ridiculous statement because it depends so much where you're at in your training cycle. Depends how long you cut for. There's just a ton of variables. I'm proving right now that 100% yes, I can build strength in the cut. My trap bar deadlift has gone through the roof. My farmer's deadlift has gone through the roof. My bench press maybe is going up. My push press and my dips are both on the way up from where they were. But my push press and my dips were not something I was prioritizing the rest of the year. So yes, of course, my strength is going up on them. My squat, I just peaked my squat, 407 pounds, the heaviest squat in my life. My squat strength has gone down. I took a little bit of a deload for the first week from squatting, and now I'm ramping the strength back up on it, but I doubt I will hit over 407 pounds in the cut. So my answer to that question would be you can definitely build strength in the cut. Depends where you're at in your training cycle, depends where you're at with your strength level. Like I said, for me, I just peaked my squat right before the cut, so I wouldn't expect to put more strength on my squat in the cut. In fact, I'm purposely, like I said, purposely deloading it to give my body a bit of a break. I'm still training. I'm ramping the strength back up now. I just hit the heaviest buffalo bar squat I hit leading up to my peak was 386 pounds with like what is good depth for me. I hit 391 and 396, but the depth was higher. This past week I hit 375 with the same depth that I hit 386 at. So next week I'll be trying to hit 380. We'll see if I can do it. But my expectation isn't that I'm going to be setting a squat PR in the cut. I have, like I said, already set several PRs in the cut on exercises that I don't train on a regular basis. Can you gain muscle in the cut? I'm not even going to attempt to give you a scientific answer to this question. Technically, you're taking in less energy than you need to build muscle, but I think depending where you're at in your training, again, depending on age, depending on where you're at in your training, you may put on muscle. All I can say is this. Even in the cut, I train like I'm building muscle and strength. I don't just mail in my workouts because I'm cutting. I bring insane intensity. I bring insane volume. And I do my best to manage fatigue and recover exactly the same way I do when I'm bulking. Okay, so to recap, I try to get 500 to 700 calorie deficit from my diet. The other 300 to 500 calorie part of the deficit I get from exercise. That gives me 1,000 calories per day deficit, which when everything's right will be 2 pounds per week. Don't expect it always to be 2 pounds per week. Like there's lost times when I've only lost a pound on Saturday, and then Monday all of a sudden the other pound is gone. I'm down 2 pounds. It's not just perfectly linear all the time. 2, prioritize protein and carbs. So for me, I prioritize my protein and carbs, and the fats fall where they will. I just manage the fats a little bit if I feel like they're getting too low. 3, train hard in the gym. So again, I train like I'm trying to build muscle and strength. Whether I am putting on muscle or losing muscle, maintaining muscle, I train like I want to build it. 4, move as much as possible. I do not ever sit down unless I'm eating or I'm driving for work. I'm always on my feet. I'm always moving. I try to make everything as hard as possible. The grocery store, I grab a hand basket and I walk around with that instead of pushing a cart. Shovel the driveway by hand. We live in a world of work smarter, not harder. When it comes to dieting, for me, working harder is always more beneficial. Working harder in a smart way in terms of the exercise and deficit. Things to not do in a diet for me, no excessive deficits. I'm not going into a massive deficit through just cutting out all my calories. Any big deficit I go into is just because I am working my butt off in the gym and outside the gym moving. Muscle is king, so those massive deficits, taking in 1,300 calories a day, thinking you're doing yourself a favor, you're just going to lose muscle mass. Nothing good is going to happen from that. Aim for 1 to 2 pounds per week. If you think you're going to lose 5 pounds a week, it's not going to happen in a healthy way. 1 to 2 pounds is super healthy. The first week or two, you may lose more than that. That's totally normal. But beyond that, I always aim for 2 pounds per week. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 1.5, but the goal is always 2. And lastly, don't mail in your workouts just because you're in the cut. Like I said, I work out like I'm trying to build muscle and strength, try to build my work capacity, and that's a great time to work on building weaknesses as well. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.